Alright. So, down to, without Maid Dragon, we're down to 23 shows. So, let's see who is next. 19. Sonny Boy. Who boy? This is gonna be a trip. Alright, let's dive into it. Alright, just finished up Sonny Boy, and that was pretty damn good. And also, very confusing. This one's gonna need a second watch for me to fully understand everything that it was saying. But I love dense shit like that. This one was Shingo Natsume's big project for the season. It was actually like so high. It was actually to the point where like right before it started airing, Funimation like aired or ran the first episode for like 24 hours a couple weeks before it actually premiered on TV in Japan. So this one was definitely hyped up for me. Shingo Natsume, obviously big rising star director. He did Space. No, he worked. He was the animation director for Space Dandy. He was the director for One Punch Man. Unfortunately, he also made the Boogie Pop remake, which kind of sucked. But him working on One Punch Man was the reason why I was so excited for the Boogie Pop remake. That just kind of didn't pan out. But now he's back to doing what looks like very much his kind of pet project. And it was good. I'm very much into this one. There's a lot of themes going on in this one that I'm going to need a second go through at some point in the future to fully grasp everything that it's trying to say. But there's a lot of talk about escapism and just sort of wanting to stay in like your safe bubble and not grow. There's a lot of talk about the written and unwritten rules of society that we just sort of have to abide by. It is a dense fucking show, man. Each episode really has a new idea, either has a brand new idea that it brings to the table, or just adds so much to a pre-existing idea that it almost feels like a new idea in itself. It's episodic, but also has a continuous narrative to it. And I liked how it blended those two kinds of two modes of storytelling. Rarely felt like it was a slog to get through, although I did have to rewind several times to get what a lot of the characters were saying. Like, if I was watching this on TV, I would have been totally fucking lost. And generally, aside from the theming and stuff, it's just a generally fun and interesting show as well. It just creates this series of really interesting and really creative worlds that these characters explore. A lot of this is thanks in part to the really strong production side to this series. This is like Madhouse getting back to being what Madhouse used to be. At least that's how I view it. Hopefully that is the case and Madhouse actually is experiencing a revival of sorts. I would certainly like to see the studio get back to being really fucking cool. But this is also a very experimental anime. Like, there's a lot of very trippy visuals. A lot of the backgrounds are extremely experimental. Vibrant, technicolor kind of stuff. The character designs lean a bit more realistic than they do anime. Especially for certain, what do you call it? Certain, like, extreme close-up shots. In general, I really like the character designs as well, despite how basic they were. But I think they more than got the job done. Before I continue, there's actually just this one idea I want to talk about. There's actually like an Indian character in it, like a guy from India. Like I think his name is Rajdhani. Like, he's one of the main characters in it, and that was just an interesting addition that's sort of handled well, sort of not. Like, he is a very interesting and compelling character on his own. I really liked him and what he added to the story, especially Like, he goes away for a bit in the story and then he comes back, and the way he is after he comes back is really interesting. So, like, he basically, like, this series also messes with, like, time a lot. So, like, sometimes a lot of times time will move differently for one character than it does for the other. So, that adds another interesting layer to it. The parts that were a bit iffy, though, were... At first, I thought I was reading a little too much into it because they basically make him the tech guy, which is kind of stereotypical for an Indian person. And at first, I was like, maybe I'm reading too much into it. And then one of the characters goes, wow, you Indians sure know your stuff. I'm like, okay, that is what they were going for. Okay, that's a little bit yikes. Just a little bit. Little bit. But aside from that, and a particular outfit they put him in later in this later in the series. Aside from that, he's a really interesting character. So, a few blemishes to it, but otherwise, really cool. Much like a lot of this cast. There are some unanswered questions with certain characters, like there's an adult character that shows up in this world at one point, and they don't completely explain her, but minor point that will definitely niggle at the back of my mind for a while. But anyway, main cast is really solid. Nagara, our main character, is kind of like a less... I've seen him compared to Shinji from Evangelion, and I think that is a pretty solid comparison, although Nagara is much more of the solemn depression type, just generally kind of apathetic, really. Not apathetic, but just, yeah, I guess apathetic would be a word. He's a much quieter version of Shinji, a less extreme version of Shinji, let's put it that way. The only character that I wish I had a lot more characterization to her was Nozomi, who I've seen described as the manic pixie dream libertarian. So basically, she's the manic pixie dream girl archetype, and also freedoms on top. Most of that's just in the first couple episodes with her, but I do wish she had a little bit more development. She's kind of just... She's more of a plot driver than she is a character. Not to say she's totally shallow. She does have some cool bits to her that I liked, but I wish she was a bit more developed as the rest of the cast. Like Mizuho, the crazy cat lady, who is easily my favorite character in the series. This grumpy asshole who slowly becomes more interested in the other people around her once the people around her stop treating her like fucking garbage. But yeah, really strong cast. And just the general ensemble cast really works well, especially when in the tenser moments where that mob mentality really kicks in. Oh yeah, there's another character like not the student council is he the president? I don't know. The guy who's on the student council, they kind of hint at something that happens to him later on, but I wish we got a more concrete explanation for that. But I'm nitpicking it really at this point. This is a really solid series, really great looking series. Although I will say it does definitely sacrifice frames sometimes in favor of a better artistic direction, which I'm fine with. It's not the worst thing in the world. Yeah, I just vibe with this series really hard. My one, I guess I would call this my biggest complaint about the series, which if this is my biggest complaint, this is a good fucking series. Really leans hard on insert songs for its soundtrack, especially in the second half. There's a lot of just like normal songs as the soundtrack instead of like BGM stuff. Sometimes that works. Like I think episode 10, I think, with the girl with the who has her arm in a sling. There's a song that plays over the beginning of that episode. I think that's really good. Other times, like in episode 11, there's an insert song that I thought needed to be much more solemn in its approach. I'm not going to say what it was, but it needed to be much more solemn for although I liked its transition into a background music track. Like it sort of transitions into a we must march on kind of feel to it. So I think I liked that. I just didn't like the song that preceded it. Yeah, the insert songs are very hit and miss. Speaking of which, fucking love the ED for this. It doesn't have an OP, unfortunately, but it has an ED by I think it's like Jing Nang Rocks, I think, or something. It's a punk group. And punk bands need to do more anime openings. We need more stance punks. We need more of whoever did the OP for Luluco. Need more punk stuff for anime openings and endings. Yeah, this overall very strong project that left me mostly satisfied at the end. I felt like the finale, it was purposefully calmer, more timid. I think it was purposefully less climactic, less explosive, which is definitely a good way of going about it, but I was hoping for a little more. They almost sour it a bit for me with a certain thing that happens, like with one character, but then they kind of reverse it near the end, so I'm like, okay, that made it better. But yeah, I just wish it had a little bit more pop to it at the end. But I understand why it was going for a more timid, more toned down ending. But yeah, would definitely recommend this one. Again, this is an art house anime. I will definitely say that. So if that's not your thing, if you just like more straightforward stuff, this is not going to be for you. But if you like stuff like Flip Flappers, if you like stuff like Kuchu Buranko, stuff like that, you're definitely going to vibe with Sonny Boy and would highly recommend. Alright, Sonny Boy is in the books. We're going to put it... Where did I decide I was going to put it? Yeah, I'm going to put it right there. Right between Odd Taxi and Zombieland. Going to give that one a light 8. This one was quite the treat. So, let's move on to the next show, which is going to be, let's take a look, 10. Getter Robo Arc. Okay, so I know this is like the last entry in a series of stuff that I haven't seen. I'm just gonna jump into it and see if I enjoy it. So no offense to Robo fans if I drop it, just knowing that. Let's do it. Well, I gave it a try, and I will say I'm definitely interested in Getter Robo in general now. I do want to go back and watch the original series, or maybe just read the manga or something. But honestly, most of my complaints on this end are visual and audio related, because this show looks like fucking garbage. And I don't mean in a they're using old school character designs garbage. I like the character designs. I just mean animation consistency is out the fucking window. This show looks like poop. CG looks like poop. My first warning sign was when there was a still frame in the OP for like 3 seconds. Just a still shot of a crowd just staring up at a giant robot or something, and it just It was the goofiest looking thing ever. So that should have been my first sign that this show was not going to be the best looking thing. But I am at least interested in Getter Robo now. Just not this particular entry yet. Maybe once I'm fully deep dived into Getter Robo, I'll be able to put up with the animation inconsistencies, because the story does look interesting. It does look like fun. So I'll get back to you when I actually watch Getter Robo. But for now, next. Alright, we're gonna take Getter Robo off the list. Go back to the randomizer. See what we get. What's up next? 13. D-side TRAUMEREI. I have no idea what this is about. I don't expect much from the title, but let's do it. Man, I really hope Sanzigen gets a decent script for one of their anime soon, because this is just a fucking waste. So, if you're unfamiliar, Sanzigen is a anime studio that does full CG stuff. I think their most famous project would be Bubuki Buranki, which was like 2016, 2017? I don't remember. But I actually think they do really good full CG stuff, like, especially in terms of like color work and stuff, though D-side, not so much in terms of color, but this is a decent looking full CG series. I really enjoyed looking at it. The action scenes are pretty solid. The character acting in particular is just fun and not totally lifeless and hollow, though it does still have that sort of start and stop effect that you see a lot of with a lot of CG stuff, so that's kind of annoying. It's a little janky, but at least it has some fucking life to it, unlike a lot of let's say Polygon Pictures shows like Knights of Sidonia or Ajin or stuff where it's just this fucking gray ew grossness. The problem is the story fucking sucks. It's just totally hollow and completely devoid of anything that hasn't been done 10,000 times before. There's no specificity to this that makes it feel like it's actually its own story being told. From what I've read up after I got through like an episode and a half. I thought the first episode was decent, and I was hoping the story would evolve from there, but it just got fucking dumb after that, so I dropped it. And I did a little research, and I guess it's a promotion for a new mobile game or something, which totally makes sense. It's a mixed media project, and this is the part that is not getting as much focus, probably, which is unfortunate, because again, this looks really good. So, unfortunately, this one's a drop, so let's move on. Alright, we're gonna take D-side off of this. Also, I totally forgot to put Hamefura on the list for some reason, so I had added that in. So, we're just gonna stay at 21 for now and see what the next show is. And it is 5. Tsushima. I believe this is a short series, so we'll see. I don't even know if it's subbed or not. We'll see how it goes. Okay, this one's not even worth me getting out of my chair for. This was just a barely animated minute-and-a-half short about Cat. With, I assume there were punchlines in it at some point. I didn't laugh. I was so distracted by there not being any animation. Moving on. Alright, we're gonna take Tsushima off the list. Making some progress now, down to 20 shows. Although only two of these are still not finished, I believe, so we'll see. Anyway, let's re-roll, see what we get. 1. To Your Eternity. Okay. This one is one of the more popular shows. Let's get into it. Alright, I guess this is the part where the internet gets mad at me. I got through 4 episodes and some change of To Your Eternity before I dropped it out of pure frustration. Now, there's 2 general aspects of this series that I don't like in totally different ways that I'm gonna get into later. Well, let's just focus on the first one now, because it's like, up until like around episode 4 or 5, there wasn't anything in this series that particularly annoyed me. There wasn't anything well, there was one thing, and that one thing was, so in the first episode, I would say is okay. It's an okay episode. It's good introduction, but it also sets up that aside from the basically the immortal character Fushi, aside from that, this is going to be a pretty realistic kind of story, I would say. That's what my expectations were from the first episode. And again, that's fine to shift that as the story goes on, but the thing that annoyed me was, in the first episode, like, injury, like bodily harm, is taken very seriously. Like, whoever the kid is in the first episode, he dies from basically an infection because he cuts his leg open on some ice. And then in the second episode, the little girl, March, tumbles down like a 50-foot fucking hill, knocking into a bunch of trees and rocks and shit, and she bounces back totally fine. So, that annoyed me. But that's a mild complaint. Really, that's not a huge thing. But in general, these first 3 episodes, there's nothing super wrong with them. But I just didn't get invested, really, in any of it. Like, don't fucking care for the main character at all. Fushi is just a blank slate of literally nothing. And I was hoping for at least some kind of human emotion by this point. That he's been around humans so long that he would at least adopt some kind of behavior. But he doesn't. It's like if Nick Carraway from The Great Gatsby was less pretentious. So he just doesn't actually, that's a bad comparison. I don't know why I was thinking that, but he's a with the exception of him moving the story forward, he is a non-entity. Like, emotionally, he is a non-entity. And that, I don't care for that at all. The rest of the characters are fine. They're okay, but I'm not super interested in them. But at this point, I was just thinking, like, this show's kind of okay. It's fine. Whatever, I'm not super invested in it. And it's a really good-looking show, too. I will give it that. Probably the best-looking brains-based show since... God, I don't know when. I don't know when the last time brains-based made a good-looking show. Because the Durarara sequels were by Studio Shuka. God, when was it? Was it the original Durarara? Is that how long it's been since Brainspace made a good-looking show? I mean, I guess they've been making the Natsume Yujin show sequels, so I guess that counts. Yeah, I guess that counts, but still, it's been like 2 or 3 years since that. And aside from that, there's really been fucking nothing. So, I mean, good on Brainspace for making a decent-looking show for once. So, first 3 episodes, again, all my complaints up to this point have been pretty minor. Episodes 4 and 5 is where it fucking starts pissing me off. Especially the opening of episode 5, the bear dies. Like, the giant Onigumo bear dies, I guess, from getting his nose bitten off? Like, why? That didn't seem like an injury that would immediately knock it unconscious for several days and eventually kill it. Again, you could argue that it was an infection, but we don't see the bear, like, struggle with that. He's just kind of out cold for, like, several days. Don't think that would happen. Especially with a bear of that fucking size. it's just so, I don't know what, like, and then, so the bear dies, and the Perona, Big Sister's plan, is to cut off a piece of its pelt to take home as proof that the god died, that the fake god died. And I'm just like, you could get a piece of pelt from anything. You could kill a bear. You could just kill another bear. Like, what's so special about this fucking bear that you're gonna take? Because you can't take the whole fucking pelt. That thing's gonna be fucking huge. She's only gonna take like a piece of it. She's only gonna take like a piece of the pelt. So, you could just kill another bear. I say that like it's an easy thing to do, but how is just a piece of pelt going to convince people that you killed their god? Their god that they don't even know what it looks like, by the way. They don't establish, really, that they know that Oniguma is a bear. Maybe they do at some point, who fucking knows? Like, they don't know how big this god is. They don't know precisely what it looks like, so it doesn't make any fucking sense. Then the part that really pissed me off is when little girl March is arguing that is getting pissed off that Perona is trying to take the pelt. The bear's already fucking dead. Doesn't matter. March has lived in an old-timey village where they kill shit all the time. Pelts are used all the time for clothes, assumably. Like, that's a normal thing. It is a normal thing to take the parts of dead animals. She had one tiny connection with this bear that already tried to kill her. This is where, yeah, March's character just unravels for me at this moment. Like, she's way too adult. Like, she thinks about things that are way too adult. And she has no reason to think about things that are way too adult. Unless the past, 4 days made her undergo a complete psychological transformation. And then Sister's like, yeah, fine, we'll leave the bear or whatever. I'm like, okay, it was a stupid fucking plan anyway, but let's go with it. And then, so they take the shaman lady with them, and the shaman lady's like, I don't know if I can convince them. I'm like, what do you mean you can't convince them? You're the one who fucking took the child in the first place. You are part of the system that is enforcing this false beliefhood. You are a shaman. Like, of course you're going to be able to convince them. What? Why? Why? So that's when this show pissed me off. Again, I was already not really invested in this show in the first place, just because I was not super entertained by the first 3 episodes. They were fine, passable stuff. And then it started throwing this bullshit in, and I'm like, okay, fuck it, whatever, done. So, yeah, go ahead and get mad at me for that. I don't give a shit. This show sucks. Next.
Alright, we're gonna take To Your Eternity off the list. And let's see. Crank it down a bit, see what's next. 18. Star Wars Visions. Okay. We are really cranking it into high gear now. Excited to see what all of this is about. Let's go.
Alright, just finished up all of Star Wars Visions. That was some really good shit. I really enjoyed most of those episodes. I guess I could give a brief backstory on my Star Wars experience. I grew up on Star Wars. It was my favorite franchise for a very long time. Ironically, the one that I've probably seen the most, which is Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. It's a weird take, I guess, but that's the only one that we owned on VHS at the time. And then prequels started coming out, and I was really into those when I was younger, and then as I got older, I realized how fucking shitty they were, and I really grew to love the original trilogy. And then the Disney trilogy started off good, and then it ended, And by the time Rise of Skywalker finished, I was very much of the mindset of I don't need any more Star Wars. I'm done with this. I've seen the first episode of The Mandalorian. It looks promising, but I haven't gotten around to all of it yet. So I didn't know what to expect with Visions, but this was really fucking good. Let's just go through it at episode at a time. I'm gonna have to pull up an episode guide just to make sure I discussed all of them and I know which ones they are. So first was The Duel. This was the Kamikaze Doga one. Immediately smacking you in the face with style, which was awesome. Very much trying to imitate like the older Japanese cinema stuff, very like Akira Kurosawa like samurai films. I think the aesthetic could have used a little bit of tweaking because some of it just looked a little muddy, but I really liked the direction that they were going for. So, and I think overall it was a strong choice. Generally, just really fucking cool to look at. The Sith lady with the umbrella lightsaber was super cool and insane. Really liked the reveal at the end too of yeah, again, by the way, spoiling everything, don't give a shit. Really liked the reveal at the end of the Ronin Jedi coming to town being a former Sith who was hunting down other Siths. Like, he opens up his vest or jacket or whatever, and you see a bunch of red kyber crystals. And that makes sense, like, looking back on it, like, visually, he's often cast in, like, shadow. He's not lit up very well. Like, there's one particular shot where, like, the front part of his face is just completely covered in shadow, which you would not, which in that era of film, you would not do with a straight, normal good guy. Like, just a plain old good guy character, you wouldn't light him that way, so, that was really cool to think back on. And of course, the fights are super fucking cool. All of the fights in this are really fucking cool. All of the fights in all these episodes are just so interesting and really expertly choreographed and such. Yeah, led off really strong with the duel. There are two overarching thoughts that I have with these shorts as a whole. Lot of focus on kyber crystals, which I thought was interesting. I mean, they are definitely one of the more cool things about the Jedi universe. And they do a lot of interesting things with them. So that was a cool idea to focus on. And I also noticed towards the end that a lot of the shorts focused on what George Lucas has said is the point of Star Wars, the main theme of Star Wars, which is family. There's a lot of family talk in these shorts. Either be a like blood family or found family or whatever. We'll get into some of those later. But yeah, the Kamikaze Doga one I really liked. Next was what was it? Tatooine Rhapsody, which was the Studio Colorito one. I was a tiny bit underwhelmed by this one. Just a bit. It looked phenomenal, except I was not a fan of the character designs. They looked like children's action figures, is what they looked like. So, not a huge fan of that. But otherwise, really cool. It's about a rock band. Just got some really strong music behind it. Yeah, I don't have a super whole lot to say about this one. It's basically band member. I like that they included Jabba in this one. Like, these shorts have some really fun ways of introducing like fan favorite ideas. Like, you don't get a bunch of like super main character stuff, but obviously, because I also like that they stayed as far away from the fucking Skywalkers as possible. I'm very happy that there was no Skywalker shit in here. I'm done with Skywalkers. Let's move on to something else. And yeah, just the way that these shorts just go to the far reaches of the galaxy to find these really interesting Star Wars stories. It was just really fascinating to me. But Tatooine Rhapsody, just a little fun short about saving a bandmate. I really like the deal with Jabba they made at the end. I thought it was gonna be super sappy and they were just gonna like ask Jabba to look into his heart or something, but no, they go like, "Hey, we're a good band. How about you sponsor us instead of killing one of our bandmates?" I'm like, "Okay, you spoke to Jabba with money. That was a really cool way to resolve the situation." So that one was fun. A little bit underwhelming in terms, and the yeah, just a little bit underwhelming, but I thought it was fine. Um, yeah. And then after that was The Twins, which was probably the most publicized short from this series because it's Trigger, Hiroyuki Imaishi's directing it, looks like Promare. This one was definitely the most anime of these shorts, which is to be expected from Hiroyuki Imaishi. I thought the story was dumb, but not like the fun kind of dumb that Imaishi usually does. I think it was just there was a lot of words that did not need to be in this. Like, for as action-packed as this short was, they also talked a whole fucking lot. And it was just, like, techno-babble that didn't make any sense. I felt we could have used a little less of that, because otherwise, this short's fucking great. Obviously, two Sith twins, but one of them turns out to turn Jedi, and then they have a big fucking fight on the bow of a Star Destroyer. Not sure how they were breathing in space, but okay. I let that one pass because this was easily one of the best fights from this series. Fucking phenomenal. It's what you expect from Imaishi making a short a Star Wars story. Just the lightsaber whips thing was so fucking cool. And then her brother manipulating the length of his lightsaber. Also, the sister is really fucking cute. Like that, probably one of the best character designs from this entire short, from all of these shorts. Yeah, is good. But the brother also gave me some strong Luke Skywalker vibes, just in terms of aesthetic, I guess. Might be because he's a cute little twink boy, but yeah, really solid character designs. And I did like, there was a strong emotional core to it, despite all the techno-babble around it. And, God, there's such phenomenal fight scenes. Yeah, that was some good shit. Really, really enjoyed it. Well, yeah, I enjoyed it. I would not put this one in the top tier of these shorts, just because there were a lot of other ones that were just so amazing. But yeah, I really enjoyed that one. What came after that? Oh, Village Bride was after that. That's the Kinema Citrus one, which is hands down my favorite from this series. Fucking love Village Bride. Star Wars has never made me cry before. It's not a franchise that is capable of doing that for me. But I got real fucking close to crying during this one. The emotional stakes of this one are so well put together, so well crafted. Phenomenal, very small story in the Star Wars universe about how, like, the remains of the Separatists are still causing problems within the galaxy. Or at least the legacy that they left behind. So fucking cool in concept. You really get to know the characters in this, despite it being like a 17-minute short. You're really invested in all of the characters in this. Fucking phenomenal art direction. Loved the character designs. They looked very Star Warsy, but also very anime. yeah, just I was absolutely blown away by this one. The color direction was so on point. I mean, that's to be expected from Kinema Citrus. If you don't know who they are, they did Made in Abyss. I don't know who directed this one. I don't think it was uh, Kojima. Now that's gonna bug me. I don't have time to look it up, but um, but I do know that it had Kevin Penkin on the score. Like, as soon as heard those strings swelling, like around the 2 minute mark, the strings started swelling up, and there was some like solo vocalists coming in. I'm like, oh, hi, Kevin Penkin. You're gonna make this real fucking good, and he sure did. He definitely. But see, I'm gonna tentatively give him the award for best score for this one, except for one other one that was a lot more understated. But I think this was definitely my favorite score from all of them. Also, it must be so fucking cool for these composers to work with the classic John Williams music. That must be so fucking awesome. So, yeah, Village Bride, easily top one for this one. Fucking loved it. What came after that? The Ninth Jedi. This was the production IG one, which was directed by Kenji Kamiyama, I believe. I'm pretty sure he's the director for Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure he is. This one was pretty okay. It was a nice little thriller, like trapped in a room. It was like a half trapped in a room mystery with all the Jedi gathering and trying to figure out the clues as to what's going on, and then half like thriller escape story with the kind of reminded me of the opening to Rogue One with the daughter running away as her dad is getting attacked by the Empire. Not a whole lot to say about this one. It's very straightforward in those two aspects. If you've seen stories like what I just described there, you kind of have a good idea of where it's going. Had some good twists in it though. There was this one really cheesy shot at the end there where I'm like, oh, I see what you did there. I wasn't super into it, but I'm like, oh, I see what you did there. Really likable characters, really cool twists in it. Just generally pretty good. I enjoyed it. Six. What was six? Number six was T0B1, which unfortunately was my least favorite short from this. It had some real big pacing issues. Like, it really sped through a ton of plot points, and it just did not resonate with me emotionally at all. I liked that they were going for like an Astro Boy kind of nod, with the TOB1 being like Astro Boy and his inventor being like, I don't know the name of the old guy from Astro Boy, but it looked a lot like him. But very cute. It's very cute. It's got a great art style, some great visual direction and such. And even then, it has a fucking great fight scene at the end. But this one had some pretty big pacing issues that I just couldn't get invested in this story, unfortunately. So that's a shame. But it wasn't the worst thing ever. On its own, I'd give it like a 5 or maybe a strong 4 or something. So it wasn't awful. It's just, I could have done without it. Or it could have done with a better script. Let's put it that way. What was number 7? 7 was The Elder, which is the other Studio Trigger one, which is directed by Masahiko Otsuka. I haven't seen a whole lot of his work as a director, but this one was pretty fun. A lot of talking. It's very sort of like a mystery kind of thing. It has the vibe of something similar to Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn's plot from episode 1. But the characters aren't wooden boards. They actually have good banter. Actually, yeah, they do remind me a lot of those two characters. Like the Jedi Knight in this one. I don't know if he's a master or not, but the Jedi Knight in that one, he has Like, he's like what Qui-Gon Jinn should have been. And then Dan, the Padawan, was pretty fun as well. Like, they got a good master apprentice vibe to them. The reveal of the bad guy in it with this old Sith dude who is just like one of the last Sith in the galaxy or something, just hiding out. The way he talks about the Sith, like fighting amongst themselves and stuff, was pretty interesting. Really solid character designs in this. Not a whole lot of animation outside of the fight scenes, but had a pretty strong visual aesthetic to it, which is not something you expect from a Trigger show. You expect them to be like these super vibrant and explosive things, much like the twins with Imaishi. But this one was much subtler and more understated, but I still really vibed with it. This was the other one that I said had a really fucking phenomenal soundtrack, because I got to the end of it and I'm like, oh, it's Michiru Oshima. Of fucking course it has a great soundtrack. She did the Little Witch Academia soundtrack. I believe she did Snow White with the Red Hair. Fucking great composer. Just really atmospheric, very toned down vibe, which is actually not usually her style. But she nailed this one in terms of soundtrack. I feel like the bad guy lost a little bit of his interest at the end, but I guess that just sort of plays into even he isn't immune to the faults of the Sith and their predispositions. Yeah, that one was good. What was the name of the 8th one? Oh yeah, Lap and Ocho, I think. Yeah, this was the Geno Studios one. I think the only thing, I haven't seen anything by Geno Studios, I don't think, because I think they did Genocidal Organ, I think, which was one of those weird sci-fi novel adaptations. But really strong presentation here. Main character's a furry, so I fell victim immediately, unfortunately. She reminded me a lot of Michiru from BNA. Definitely had that vibe to her. Super fucking cute rabbit girl. Kill me in the comments if you must. I will not apologize. This one had a much more, and a lot of these had, this one very much especially, but a lot of these had a more like Japanese aesthetic to them, especially in the art design and the background design and stuff. This one in particular was really strong with it. Also played a lot with the theme of family, like I mentioned before. There was one thing that really bothered me about this, is that, like, a lot of the still frames looked like they were shaking. I don't know if anyone else noticed it, or maybe my eyes are just playing tricks on me. But that's the only one that did it, so it must be something with the art style, or how they captured it or something, whatever. It was distracting me for some reason. Like, it had to have been intentional, but was not a huge fan of that. It was more distracting than anything else. But other than that, really fucking strong character designs. There was the conflict between the Ocho and her father in this one was, it needed a little more build up, I think. Like, we just cut right to the conflict after, like, it's like the 7-year gap between the character introductions and the actual conflict, and we just cut right to the conflict after the initial introduction. I think we needed a little more build up before the dad goes full eco-terrorism, but he's the one in the right in this one, which I get because he's facing off against the Empire, and the Empire's destroying their environment. But they needed a little more build up to that. The sister, or his daughter, and also Lop's like stepsister, going the centrist route on this one, and then eventually just joining the Empire entirely. That was a really cool downfall arc for her, especially in the second half of the episode. And then, once again, some phenomenal fucking fight scenes. it was a good one. That was a good one. And then finally we had, what was it called? What was the last one called? Akakiri, which was another Science Saru one. Much better than the first one in my opinion. Bold move to end on this one though, because it ends with a Jedi being corrupted by the Sith and joining them. So it's just a total downer to end on. Bold choice. I wouldn't have done it. I would have ended with either the twins or Village Bride, or no, I think I would have ended with Lop and Ocho actually, because that has a more, yeah, I would have ended with Lop and Ocho because it has a more ambiguous ending to it. It's like, does she eventually get her sister back? Does she not? Who knows? I think that would have been a good ending for it. Same with the twins. It's got a sort of ambiguous ending to it. But bold move to end on just full dark side. Just bold move to end on. And fucking stellar art direction on this one. I believe this was An Young Choi, I think that's what their name is. I think they directed this one. Basically the second to Masaki Yuasa at Science Saru. Is Masaki Yuasa still at Science Saru, or did he abandon that? I don't remember. But anyway, fantastically directed short. Some really gut punch emotional stuff, some really great comedy stuff too. It's got two characters that kind of remind me of the guys from that trio of goofballs from Mulan. They kind of have that vibe to them, at least aesthetically. But they're a lot older. I found them very endearing. And again, this one has a lot to do with family and stuff. Just some very... It hits a lot of strong emotional points. There are a few moments where things weren't quite as well set up in terms of actions that characters took, but overall, good short. Just weird note to end on. I would not have expected Disney to just end on full dark for a Star Wars property. So that's Star Wars Visions. Let's see if I can get a rankings for you out of the way before my camera battery dies. Village Bride definitely at the top. I'm gonna say the Duel is number 2. You know what? That was really... It's growing on me the more I think about it. I'm going to say Lop and Ocho is number 3. I'm going to give that number 3. The Twins, number 4. Just, it was super fucking dumb, but it was so fucking phenomenally directed action-wise and stuff. Now it's getting tough. I'm going to say The Elder, number 5. I'm probably going to change these rankings later anyway, but this is just off the top of my head. I'm going to say Akakiri, number 5. Then The Elder is number 6. The Ninth Jedi, number 7. Tatooine Rhapsody, number 8. And TOB1, and last. So that's Star Wars Visions. Really fucking liked it. And let's move on to the next show.
Alright, Star Wars Visions is complete. And we're going to put it a little bit above Sonny Boy. Not quite it. I'm going to give it a decent 8 though. I'm going to put it as... Didn't quite reach the higher echelon of stuff, but really damn good.